I feel like this is going to get really embarrassing.
I'm trying
really
to give
fast.
you some credit. You are in a position to hate me the most. It's allowed. If you were with someone else, you wouldn't dig in against me as much.
But we're married.
Dig in as much. But because we're married, you dig in a little extra. And that goes for work as well.
Welcome to the podcast with Kilee Nichols. I'm Kilee, founder and CEO of the life-changing accessories brand Nickel & Suede and the successful style blog One Little Mama. I made the unlikely transition from stay-at-home mom to founder and entrepreneur. It takes a lot of courage to make a change like that, but I love the growth and the confidence that's come from stepping out of my comfort zone. This is the podcast for people who want to be inspired to be brave, to take a chance, and to change their life. I'll be sharing stories and actionable takeaways about working with your spouse, being a working mom, starting and growing a business, confidence, motivation, and more. So get ready to get inspired and to get started with Kilee Nichols.
Hi, welcome to the podcast. I'm Kilee, and you are here with Kilee Nichols and Soren Nichols today. Soren is joining me on the podcast today. He's been away for far too long. So welcome, Soren.
Hello. Welcome. Yes. Welcome to me, I guess. Glad to be here.
Glad you're here. Thanks for being here. Today, I thought I'd have you on to talk about a topic.
Hold on. A topic. I don't know what it is yet. You're going to surprise me.
I am, but no worries because this is a topic you're a professional at.
All right, go.
So
No
last
pressure.
week, our last episode was about quitting or pivoting, and someone had asked a question about whether, if something's not going well, what should I do? Should I make a drastic change? Should I change? And so last episode we talked about, don't quit, pivot. And so since then, I've just been thinking about that. And so today I wanted to talk about quitting or not quitting. And I thought you'd be the perfect person to have on because you have unparalleled endurance and perseverance. And I do not. Would you agree?
With parts of that, yes. I see where you're going. Okay.
Yeah. So I thought today we'd talk about lately, we've just been in, I don't know, not lately, maybe for the last 8 months, year, 2 years, I just feel like we've been in a season of like working really hard, like walking through really deep snow of just like enduring and like keeping going and persevering and pushing through. And there's been so many times where I've just like wanted to curl up and be like, I quit. I'm so tired. This is so exhausting. And so like my advice of sometimes you need to pivot is good advice, but other times you just need to endure. And lately I've just been really tired and I don't want to endure. And you're kind of my guy to go to be like, Soren, I quit. And you're like, you can do it. You can do it. And so anyways, I thought you and I should talk about quitting, endurance, perseverance. So
Can I use mountain analogies?
you have to use mountain analogies. That's all you've got.
Okay.
So, do you agree with this? Are you my guy to go to when I'm like, I feel like quitting? I'm quitting the podcast. I'm pretty sure I said that 3 times in the last week.
100%. I'm your guy. Am I supposed to say more than that?
Yes.
Yes. I am your guy for that because you do feel that way. That does come, and I'm sure it comes to many people as well. And we will talk about that.
Okay. Why do you think that is? Like, why do I feel like quitting all the time?
Because life can get hard. There's challenges. That's in the definition of a challenge. And I think there's a deception that quitting will relieve the challenge. And my view is that the truth is that quitting only brings you another challenge of a different kind that doesn't have a summit. Enter the mountain analogies.
Yeah.
So yes, you can quit climbing the mountain, but that's not a good spot to stop. In the middle of the climb is never the right time to stop and turn around because you're usually in a risky situation. And so the choice to stop, quit, or consider it is usually one that is something you're supposed to push through.
Yeah. So you and I have climbed mountains together before. And it's only happened a couple times because I'm a horrible mountain climbing partner. I despise it because of this difference in our personality. So Soren is like the kind where he will start a project and he'll work straight through for 12, 24, 36 hours and then crash. But like you'll just like work through. And I feel like I start working on something, and if I get tired, I'm just like, well, I'm exhausted. I'm done. And that's what happens sometimes when we climb mountains. And so this entrepreneurial journey has been an interesting one where we really need each other sometimes, because I will get exhausted of a trial or a difficulty and be like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And I'm needing somebody to say, we have to keep going. There's no stopping right now. We're in the middle of the trail. And that's kind of where you step in.
That's where I step in, and that's where you hate me the most.
Yeah, the tip, just like on the mountain where we're climbing up the mountain and you're like, we have to keep going. And I'm like, I hate you so much for bringing me on this trail.
Yes, you do.
You are the worst human being. Why would you take me on this trail? But
yes,
that's part of I think, the pain in the journey of like that difficult hike, right? That difficult hike that has the rewards at the end.
So I'm feeling like adding some color. Is that permitted?
That's why you're here.
Okay. Yes, it's only been maybe twice that we've hiked on mountains before.
I feel like this is going to get really embarrassing.
I'm trying
really
to give
fast.
you some credit. You are in a position to hate me the most. It's allowed. If you were with someone else, you wouldn't dig in against me as much.
On hiking?
Yes.
Yeah.
If I were maybe a boyfriend, you wouldn't
but we're married,
dig in as much. But because we're married, you dig in a little extra. And that goes for work as well. And so I guess the other thing I would say is that the strength that you do have, maybe that balances mine out, is sometimes I don't start things because I see them as big mountains.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is going to be days of, work in a row. And you say, no, let's just chip away at it a little bit at a time. Just start it. Just 45 minutes at the end or beginning of each day.
Yeah,
and I can't think in those terms. To me, it's a mountain. Let's pack up. Let's drive. Let's get there. Let's do it all in. And you balance that out pretty well. So if that mindset is a strength of yours, then the chip away at it attitude does lead you to feel like a mountain is something you can chip away at.
Yeah.
Which is true, because the advice for all climbers is that you divide the mountain up into chunks and you just focus on the first chunk and then you get there. And then you focus on the next chunk and then you get there and you visualize it. And that's how you push through the pain, because the climbing mountain, the famous climbing mountain analogy is that it feels like hitting yourself in the head with a hammer because it feels really good once you stop. And so in order to push through those things, you're definitely pushing through feelings of, I want to stop, I want to quit, I want to turn around, I want it to end. And sometimes that's just not in the cards. It's not good to do. You should keep going. So yes,
yeah.
I'm there for you in that way, but
Yeah.
you're there for me also to even get started.
Yeah, I think so. Owning a business, and I've talked about even just with starting goals and starting projects on the podcast lots of times, is it's so important to chunk it down into small pieces. And so I am all about like, it's so manageable as long as you look at it in small chunks, break it down into small pieces. I think the funny thing is, if you look at it in mountain terms, is I'm inexperienced enough sometimes in the goals that I look at or in the mountains that I look at. You can look at a mountain from a distance and be like, oh, it looks so close. Like, that doesn't look like a very far distance. We can probably get there in a very short jaunt, And you think when you look at a mountain, like, oh, that's probably just like a little day hike, Like, we've looked at, mountains before and been like, oh, how long would it take to get to the top of that? And I might be like so optimistic and think we could just pack a picnic, be up there, by the end of the day and then be back. And you're over there thinking, oh my word, I have kind of been up this before. I know what this is going to be. And that's probably where we balance each other out. And I think it's helpful to have both of those sides in any project or any marriage or anything. Is it's like someone's got to be the optimistic one that starts the vision, starts going after it, and someone's got to be the, okay, well, I'm going to pack the extra tools and the extra things because I know how much work this is going to be. So that's probably where we balance each other out.
A little bit of color to that, and maybe other people identify with this. If a mountain ever looks close, it's because it's enormous. That's just the way they are. So if it looks like, oh, wow, that's very close, I could do that. Small mountains always look far away. Just think of it that way.
Okay.
It's all relative to size. So if it looks close, it's because it's gigantic.
Yeah. So I typically, and I've found that with our business and with the kind of the goals that I set for myself, is I've got these high expectations. And I think that speaks to the last podcast too. It's like, I've got these high expectations. I think it's going to go this certain way. I think it's going to be so fun. And you set off on this path and you're like, this is going to be great. I feel great already. My shoes feel good. My water bottle's full. I'm like feeling happy about this. And then a couple hours in, I'm like, I'm going to die. And I hate everybody who's with me who thought this was a good idea and didn't like stop me immediately. And so I'm still like that endurance. I think you have to build up and keep learning. And I think it's just good that we're in it together, I guess. But that's, you put up with my spurts of anger along the way of like, why did you let me do this? And just push us along. And then I think you get another burst of energy, you keep going, and then that's how you take those chunks. But
okay, I'm ready for the advice piece.
Okay.
Is that?
Yep.
Okay. So I want to see if I can hit all these. So one, experience.
Yeah.
Helps a lot. If you haven't gone before, then every challenge feels like it's going to end you.
Yes.
Because you are at your end.
Well, it's brand new. It's always brand new, which anytime you start something new that you've never done before, feels like it's going to kill you.
Because you're at your end.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So that's why that exists. All it takes is a shift in perspective from someone who's been there before and knows that this is not the end.
That's true.
So that makes an enormous difference. And every person who's been there before, who's dealing with pulling someone up a mountain who hasn't been there before, has to walk that balance of letting them know, no, it's okay. This is safe. We can keep going. We've done this before. I'm used to this feeling, and you will really enjoy it. Our business consultant right now keeps talking about the joys of leadership. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. Well, he's seen it many times.
Yeah, he's been there before.
He's been there before. He knows that on the other end, it's really rewarding. It's really rewarding to be 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of your employees, giving them all the work and all the challenges and helping them feel successful, and that it actually does build the business, but you have to have a leader.
Yeah.
So the joys of leadership are that you're feeding what's needed to the employees to do the work, and that they become successful, which in turn comes to the business, and it's the leadership that gives that feeding. So really that applies, I think, to so many different places where if you feel like you're doing something, which in other episodes I've talked about, trying something new and learning something new, and that's so critical. But every time you go after a new skill, you're always going to be feeling like, oh my word, this is so hard. I'm at the end of my I'm always at the edge of the unknown. I don't know what I'm doing. But then if you can go find somebody who's been there before, that mentor piece, that person who's done something ahead of you. And lots of times when we're on a trail, okay, the 2 times we've been on a trail, you've been that for me. And sometimes you're empathetic, sometimes not. But you're like, this isn't going to end you, Kilee. Like, you can make it. Mm-hmm. And that should give some peace of mind and some help. And so when something feels difficult, when you feel like giving up, finding somebody who's been there before can totally be the total game changer to make you feel like, oh, this isn't the end. There's so much more ahead. I don't need to feel like giving up right now because I'm 100% in the middle. I'm not on a cliff. So I want to make sure we mention that the reason that experience makes a difference is because they've seen
the trail ahead.
The trail ahead.
Yeah.
And also the reward, and that the reward, the outcome, is worth it. So they don't let the feeling of incapability be the deciding factor.
Yeah.
Because they know the capability is enough for the road ahead
Yeah.
and that the reward is worth it. So that's why that experienced perspective makes the difference. So the way I talk about it in climbing terms is the familiarity of, I'm standing on a ledge that's 2 inches. That sounds really scary, but when you've done it before, you feel this sense of, this is normal. Right? This is normal, and 2 inches is actually really stable. And it's not going to shake my nerves because I know that you just get past this.
Yeah.
And it's just a familiarity issue.
So
if you're not familiar with it, it will wiggle your legs. And if you've got that familiarity, you are able to move through it. So it's that perspective of the experienced person.
Yep.
The other piece, there's 2 more pieces.
All right.
The other piece is preparation. You have to be in shape enough to go through some of the tasks that you have ahead of you. So in some cases, the preparation becomes key. I would not take you on a mountain if I didn't prepare you with the equipment and if I didn't think you were in shape to do it. So preparation does make a huge difference. Enough said there.
Yeah. How would you apply that to listeners? I mean, so if you're preparing as a, you don't want to, you don't need to give up if you feel like you've prepared, then that kind of takes away that I need to give up because, okay, no, I don't need to give up because I know I've done this. I know I've learned. I know I've got skills in my toolbox. I know I've got enough things with me. So how would you apply that?
There's usually deal breakers, and not having enough water is usually a deal breaker.
Yeah.
But most other things you can push through. And so for listeners, there are things that if you have a goal and you have something you want to do or something that you're doing that you're finding is hard, consider what the deal breakers are and be honest about whether it's actually a deal breaker or if it's just fatigue. Because in climbing, you're always going to get to that past fatigue exhaustion point.
Yeah.
But if you've got some of what you planned, if you've got the water, it's okay to keep going.
Yeah.
It's actually, that's what it is. What you're doing, the journey is not meant to be easy. It's never was going to be easy.
Yeah.
So some of it you can look at and say, there's some deal breakers here or there's not deal breakers, so I can keep going.
So I would think, to me, that would look at your priorities and say, hey, are my priorities being, offended here or hurt here? So like deal breakers to me would be, are my kids safe and healthy and okay? And, is my family balance being messed up? And if not, am I just tired? Is my sleep getting messed up? Is this being, are my priorities still being okay? That would be where maybe I'd look at my deal breakers and see how they're doing. But if those are all okay and I'm just tired and it's just hard and I just cry every other day and it's like, okay, is crying a deal breaker? Is crying several times a week a deal breaker? Feels like a deal breaker.
When you're growing a business like you have started,
it feels like a deal breaker, Soren. Like
not a deal
crying
breaker.
Isn't crying a deal breaker as a grown up?
Definitely
like
not.
A grown woman crying feels like it. Okay, fine. So I think you just figure out what your deal breakers are, and then I like that. Then you go after skills, you go after preparedness, you go after, okay, maybe just waking up every day, making sure you're prepared for the day. Like that's something I've been working on. Like, am I mentally prepared for my day today? Can I handle so that I don't end up in tears because I know I've, started my day right. I'm mentally ready to give it my all. And I know I've got my priorities in order. So, okay. What's your third?
Number 3 is how to deal with that crying.
What?
So when we were first married, this was probably 2007, you and I watched a TV series called Everest. Do you remember, in our apartment in Provo?
Slightly. I have bad memory for movies.
So it was a TV series where they followed, a set of climbers going up Everest. Mm-hmm. And there was this part in that series that I remembered that stuck with me. And
the guy who gave up.
The guy who was literally just a couple hours away from the summit of Mount Everest, who said, I'm just going to stay here. I'm done. I'm proud of myself. I'm happy. This is so accomplishing to me. I'm ready to be done. And he was up above the death zone. where oxygen is low. So he literally was sitting down to die.
Yeah.
And the TV crew knew it. The climbers knew it. It was a moment of insanity for him. It was a moment of extreme fatigue that causes you to lose your sense, lose your priorities, you lose your perspective.
Yeah.
And his thought was that I have reached my end. I have reached the end of where I want to go. I've lost steam. I've lost the desire to continue. I'm out. And the 2 points of that is that none of that was true. He was only 2 hours away. He had the preparation. He had the water. He didn't have any deal breakers. He was just beyond exhausted.
Yeah.
That's what the journey was. He's climbing Everest. Be ready for that. So the mental battle was lost. He lost that battle.
Yeah, he
was wrong. It was incorrect. The second piece is that he literally would have died had he done what he said. And in that moment, I remember on the show, he said, I want to die. This is great. I've lived my life. I am. And that was so misguided.
It's so sad.
So sad. Tragic. 2 hours away. And so the moments where we think we're out of steam, where we're beyond exhausted, we think we're done, the two things to remember is we're wrong. And two, where we are actually right now is, if we stopped, probably very dangerous. Probably going to set us in a path of negative outcome of some kind. I remember you made me withdraw from one of my classes in my senior year because I just had too many credits because I was trying to overachieve. And that, I think, helped me, right? To, not have so many credits. So...
But you hold it against me because it could have changed your life forever for good.
Not really. What I'm saying is that there was no danger in me withdrawing, right?
Yeah.
From that situation. And so you have to look at, if you think you're exhausted, think you're done, and that things will get better, you have to consider that, where am I on a mountain that I need to keep pushing through because we're almost there? We're almost there. Keep going. Don't give up. Being exhausted is just part of it, part of climbing mountains, part of doing difficult things. Don't let that stop me. Or is it wisdom? I've climbed before where we ran out of light. We didn't anticipate a storm. We didn't have headlamps. We didn't have water. We've turned around before, and that was the wise decision.
Sure.
That's not a moment to push forward. Well, right. That's because we had deal breakers come up.
Right. But in this really pointed experience the man had on Everest, though, he was so close. So close.
The safest thing to do was to keep going, push through the exhaustion. And his point of saying, I'm done, I'm fine just sitting down. Just let me sit down to rest, in which the next 10 minutes he would die.
Yeah.
That is misguided. That is the time to push through.
Yeah. And I think the thing I think that's saved him was that he had people around him who recognized the dangerous situation he was in. And so that's, I guess, where you and I come in for each other, right? And so when I sit down, I'm like, I quit. We can't go on. Or you're feeling the same way. Like, usually we're at a point where it's like things are so hard for a reason. And I think when things get bottled up to that point, it's like either things are going to just explode into a really positive direction if you can just push through.
Yes.
Or if you quit, like, you're just going to end up like you said, in the opposite direction, the negative direction. Like, things are just going to fall apart because there's a reason things have gotten so difficult that you feel like quitting. Like, you're either going to have a breakthrough or you're going to break down. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's either you push through and you have that growth moment. Like, it's probably, I'm imagining like some seed, right? Like a seed, like pushing through, sprouting through the ground. Like, it's got to be that same moment of like the hard part, like the seed like sprouting through the earth, or like the seed like breaking underneath the ground. Like,
yep, it's darkest just before the sun comes up, all that same stuff.
Yeah. So I think that's where I think you need somebody else's perspective to say you're almost there. Like, don't whether it's your team, your husband, your spouse, your friend, like don't give up on your own and don't quit on your own. Like you need somebody to balance that and to say no. And so that's why I'm like, don't ever go climbing alone, Soren. Like don't ever go hiking alone. Like you need a team, you need a group to tell you it's safe or to tell you not. So anyways, that's great advice. I've climbed
alone and felt that risk, that danger of, I think this is probably not safe. I should stop. And I'm incorrect. And the alone gets, it attacks you.
Yeah.
I've also been climbing in teams where someone on my team says, I'm just going to sit down here.
Yeah.
I think I'm done. And I've pulled them through that final crust to get them to the top and convince them that, no, you're actually like the insane guy on Everest right now. So I've literally seen that.
Yeah.
And that comes... It's probably some physiological thing at points of extreme exhaustion, mental or physical. I'm sure that that's a physiological thing that comes to everybody in whatever the point is, that you end up becoming, I don't know.
You push yourself through exhaustion and hard things and goals. And I think anybody who's really high achieving or wants to be is going to push themselves through that and into that. And so it's that mental game that sometimes you really need somebody to bounce those things and help you through that. So great advice, Soren. I love that. Thanks for those 3 tips today. Way to just, walk into a podcast interview into the unknown. And you still came out. I told you this was a perfect topic for you. So I think we definitely all learned something today about not quitting. I will consider hiking with you again after this. We're going to Hawaii in a week. And so I feel like that's a destination I could consider hiking in. Maybe.
Good for you.
On the beach in Tevas. So anyways, thanks everybody. You make sure to subscribe, we would love to hear reviews if this podcast is helpful for you, how it's helping you. And you can always watch on YouTube or listen wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll be sure to see you next week. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for listening today to With Kilee Nichols. Stay tuned next week for another episode. And if you can't wait until then, you can find me at onelittlemama.com, MOMMA, for beauty, our family, style tips, and more. And you can find my business at nicholandswade.com with the and spelled out. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.